Oh dear. Frozen camera. Good morning, or afternoon, I should say. Unless it really is morning for you. Then, good morning to you. At least my camera froze with a smile, I guess. Oh, typical. Hold on. There we go. Alright, I'm back. Technology. Hello, Aranel. Sidarius, welcome in. Garuki's in here somewhere, trying to catch Pokemon as well. I was just too late to throw a ball, but... Oh, but hey, we have a new one. Oh, it's a Latias this time. I'm gonna throw an Ultra Ball because I've been told that that's a legendary Pokemon. I have no idea. No idea at all. But hey, it's good to see you all. I hope you are doing well on this Sunday afternoon, at least afternoon here. It has been an interesting morning already. I was thankful for the cooler weather. I did a lot of stuff outside this morning over at the church I go to. Setting up a lot of things, a lot of equipment, tables, things like that. So I was glad for the cooler 60-degree temperatures, but it's like 81 now. So we closed all the windows, we turned on the air, and yes, it's still warm in here, but the air's on at least. I enjoyed my day. Now it's time to relax before sleep. Perfect. I hope this time gives you that, because that is one of my goals here. Other than to, you know, promote this concept of reading and enjoying a good book, it is also to relax. So normally, focus camera, focus. There we go. I threw an Ultra Ball at that thing and it escaped. Fine, whatever. Normally, this would be the only day I stream, but of course, you know, we streamed last night and it was great. We got through quite a lot of this book and we loved it. There were highs, there were lows, and everything in between. And depending on how the reading goes today, we're on a page 103, and there's 140 pages, so we've got 37 pages to go. We might actually finish it today. I didn't actually think that we would, but we might. We might actually do it. So we'll see. If we don't finish it today, we'll definitely finish it next week. But before we get into that, let's get into the Stream Raiders. We are going up against a much more difficult boss. This is a 4-skull, so we definitely are going to want some troop deployment for sure. Let's see. So I've got a warrior, I've got the bronze guy there, rogue, flag bearer, archer. I'm gonna go with a flag bearer. I'm gonna put my flag guy right here, and then you guys place whatever you want right there. Don't worry about all this. Don't worry about any of that. Exclamation point Stream Raiders if you want to get in on that. Should be fun. Alright. Good stuff. Let's see, have you checked a link to my poem that I sent you on Discord or not yet? Because I only have one response from a person speaking English. I would love to know if it's any good. I did, actually, Sir Darius. I did check it out. And I was... either when we're done with this book or before we start the next one, I'm gonna do a quick pause and read it, because it's a good little poem. I actually enjoyed it. So yes, I'm definitely gonna be reading that for sure. Okay, I've got my drink. And I'm ready. I hope you are. Thank you so much. Really, absolutely. That's a good little poem. I liked it. I used to write poetry myself, actually. Seems like a while ago now. Not stuff that I think I would share public. Well, I did share it publicly because I put it online, but not in a streaming platform kind of way. But yeah, no, I appreciated it. This is the long answer. Or the short answer to my long answer. I did appreciate it. So, today in our reading, we are getting into chapter 14 already. This takes us back to 2015, titled Hastings, Minnesota. So, not that long ago. 6 years ago. It's kind of hard to imagine. And, of course, we have a lovely picture here, a group photo, so let me get that on screen so that you can see it. Whoop. There we go, focused in a little bit. There's the happy group right there. Okay. Alright. Here we go. Chapter 14. And good luck if you're trying to catch that clefable. I have no idea what a clefable is, but that's okay. We've decided to go to Dryce House this year for our annual get-together. We discussed trips to several places: the North Shore of Lake Superior, Chicago, Washington, D.C., but couldn't decide on one, so Dryce suggested spending the week at her house. She lives in a big, comfortable house with plenty of room for all of us. The St. Croix River is nearby, so we could go boating there and enjoy ourselves in other ways. So that's what we decided to do. Dryce contacts us a few weeks before we've scheduled to stay at her house to ask whether we'd be interested in taking a painting class. We all liked the idea and decided to try the dual canvas poppies class offered by a local artist. His studio is upstairs from a bar. It has windows on two sides and tables set up in a U-shape so we can all see the instructor. Supplies are available at each seat, with extras set up in front. None of us consider herself an artist, and I'm hoping to just not make a fool of myself. I'd be the same. There are about 20 other women in the class, mostly of our vintage, with a few younger and a few older. We stand in front of our dual canvases. We're going to paint part of... Blah, blah. I'm winning already. Here we go. I'm going to try that sentence again. We stand in front of our dual canvases. We're going to paint part of the picture on one canvas and part on the other. Then, the two canvases will be hung side by side to create one image. I like those kind of paintings. I have some in our house. My canvases are both on the table, and I start by painting some of the background colors, beginning with the lower left-hand corner of one canvas and working across that diagonal to the second canvas. I'm having a hard time imagining how this is going to end up looking like the teacher's model painting, but I follow directions and do as I'm told. Mostly, when I understand what he's saying. I ask a lot of questions about how to cover up my mistakes, and the teacher is very patient in reassuring me not to worry. By halfway through the class, we are all covered with acrylic paint drops, and it's difficult to resist scratching my nose to avoid getting the rest of my face covered. We keep the waitress busy bringing glasses of wine that we are careful not to spill on our canvas creations, and, at each step of the process, we wander around looking at other people's work. It's amazing to me how different our paintings look, even though we're all following the same instructions and looking at the same example. The woman next to me is a rock star, and I wish that I was sitting next to someone whose work looked a little more like my own. Messy, but colorful. As the two canvases start to look more like a single painting, I begin to see the method in the teacher's madness in having us paint certain sections first. Achieving a 3D effect for the poppies especially requires painting the background in different sections and colors. The black stems on the flowers look like complete chaos, but in the end my painting actually looks pretty interesting. Do you still have that painting, Christy? I do wonder. At the end of the class, we all pose for a photo that will show up on the studio's website the next day. When it's time to go home, my friends and I stand next to Dryce's minivan, trying to figure out how to transport our paintings without getting the wet acrylic paint on Dryce upholstery. You still have it? Could you send us a picture? I would love to see it. We lay a few of the paintings flat in the back, then gingerly hold onto the others as Dryce backs out of the parking place. Getting out of the third seat of the van, a challenging maneuver to begin with for us 60-somethings, requires a little extra care. We pass our work to the person who just got out before we attempt it. We spread our paintings out in Dryce's garage to dry overnight. We take varying degrees of pride or embarrassment in our canvas creations. Some of us vow to put them straight in the trash, others to hang them in a discreet location. Personally, I'm going to hang mine on the wall in the guest bedroom. It doesn't look like a lot like the instructor's model canvas, but no one else is going to know that. Until now, because you wrote it down, but that's okay. We decide to take a dinner cruise on the St. Croix River the second night of our visit. The boat has 2 levels, an outdoor deck upstairs and an enclosed room downstairs. It's a little chilly, and we find a table on the upper deck that is sheltered from the wind, but still gives us a full view of the river. The downstairs room has an enclosed staircase in the middle, so passengers can only see one side of the river at a time. The river is beautiful, with thick green trees on either side of the shoreline, and the occasional home on a bluff overlooking the river. Dryce knows the names of some of the people who own the fancy houses. They're well-known business people from the Minneapolis area who come to the Stillwater on weekends in the summer. The buffet dinner includes prime rib, potato salad, veggies, and cookies for dessert. When we return to our table for dinner, it's already occupied by someone else, so we push a couple of smaller ones together to make room for all 6 of us. Larson is freezing, so after dinner she moves to a chair that's completely out of the wind. There isn't room there for all of us, so we take turns keeping her company as the boat turns around and heads back to Hastings. There are a few boaters on the river who wave at those of us on the big boat, and we wave back. It's almost dark when we return to shore. Dryce fires up the heater full blast in her minivan to warm up Larson, and the rest of us appreciate the hot air blasting through the vents too. That sounds like a nice evening. I would really enjoy something like that, I think. The next day is Dryce's usual day to babysit her granddaughters, so we decide the 4 little girls will have 7 babysitters instead of the usual 2. Dryce's husband, John, also helps take care of the girls on their weekly visits to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Emmy, the newest granddaughter, is just 7 weeks old, so we all take turns holding her. Izzy, the oldest at 5, is very interested in what Grandma's friends are doing. Larson starts her usual yoga routine in the family room, which is surrounded on 3 sides with windows and provides a very cheery setting in the early morning. In the corner is a huge peace plant that we roomies had sent Dryce a few weeks earlier when her mother died. It has thrived in this beautiful room. Izzy sits down across from Larson and begins imitating her yoga moves. Larson explains each exercise and tells Izzy what muscles it helps build. Once Izzy and Larson have finished, Fellows starts to bake chocolate chip cookies with Izzy's help. Fellows has a granddaughter in high school, so she knows how to have a young girl help her. She demonstrates how to scoop up the dough and drop it on the cookie sheet. If Izzy scoops a little too much dough, or not quite enough, Fellows gives her feedback until she gets it just right. They put the cookies in the oven, and we all salivate until the first batch is ready to eat. Izzy's a little too young to handle the hot pan, so Fellows takes the cookies out of the oven to cool. Dryce and I decide to play blocks with Izzy, 18-month-old sister, Mia. I'm impressed with the cool set of blocks that Dryce and John have bought for the girls. They're brightly colored 4-inch by 4-inch interlocking waffle blocks. We really get into building walls for a house and garage out of them. Mia puts the people blocks into the rooms of the house and tells us what each person is doing. When we're finished, we all help put the blocks away before moving on to another project. Cookie Nom indeed. And that's a fun chapter 14. I've always seen river cruises advertised like on PBS and stuff, but they're like the expensive stuff, and my budget will not allow for that. But a one night, dinner on the river, that sounds great. All right. Chapter 15. I need another drink. That one didn't quite go down very well. Okay, chapter 15 is 1970 to 1971, senior year, second semester, and we have another really cool picture here. That's fun. Everyone looks extremely happy in that picture. Alright, let me just make sure we're doing okay. 16 minutes, perfect. Lovely. Alright, here we go. Chapter 15. My dad called a few weeks after the Judy Collins concert to tell me that his brother Roger had been able to get tickets for them to go to the Masters golf tournament, and that my dad would be going to Georgia for Easter. I was very excited for him, but a little sad about being alone for Easter. Larson invited me to go home with her for the holiday. At Larson's house, they had a scavenger hunt on Easter morning to find the eggs. Each station had a clue for finding the next batch of goodies. I was a little disadvantaged as I didn't know where her parents typically hid things, but I caught on fairly quickly. Larson's brother Tom, who was a freshman at Concordia, helped me out occasionally when I got stumped by the clues. After breakfast, we got ready for church. We sat in the third row of the sanctuary, and when we both looked over at Larson's mother during the sermon, we saw that she was sound asleep. That does happen sometimes. She snorted herself awake, and Larson and I started giggling. Been there. Not with the snorting part, just the laughing. We tried to stop, but couldn't. People in front of us were giving us dirty looks, and Larson's mother woke up and frowned at us. Later, she insisted she hadn't been sleeping. But we still couldn't stop laughing. We laughed all the way through communion. We finally had to leave the sanctuary. After Easter dinner, we did the dishes and then watched the Masters tournament on their black and white TV. My dad had told me to look for his red, white, and blue striped pants, and lo and behold, there he was, right next to the 18th green. The camera wasn't on him for very long, but it was definitely him. He joked later that he had beat out a little old lady for that spot. He and Roger had gotten there very early to to secure their seats. Larson and I had Easter Monday off from school, so we drive back to Concordia the next morning in the Mustang. We dropped Tom off at his dorm, and then headed to the apartment. The other roomies were already at the apartment when we got back, except for Fellows, who would arrive later that night on the train. And that was a short snippet. I can't ever say I've seen a black and white TV. I've seen TV shows where people portray black and white on their TV, but it's definitely not the same thing. Does get one curious what that might have been like. Curious indeed. Alright, so we have another new picture here. I'm loving all the pictures, by the way. Here's one of hot air balloons. Get that focus. There we go. That would have been a cool sight. So this is chapter 16 of 2016 Anderson Ranch, Sile, New Mexico. You guys go on a lot of trips, making me a little jealous, you know? I love all these adventures. For our trip this time, we stay at a 300-acre ranch about 45 miles north of Albuquerque and 30 miles west of Santa Fe. The ranch is part of the Santo Domingo Pueblo. It's located in the highest desert, surrounded by open space dotted with scrub and trees. The Rio Grande River borders the property. The place belongs to my colleague Brownie, who offered it to us for a week free of cost. That's pretty awesome. I will arrive a day before the others. My train from Fort Madison, Iowa is about 1.5 hours late getting into Albuquerque. I catch a cab to the airport to pick up the rented minivan, and by the time I head to the ranch, it's starting to get dark. Brownie had set very specific driving directions that would have been very helpful in daylight, but aren't quite as helpful in the dark since I can't see some of the landmarks she describes for me. The first problem is that she said to drive about 8 miles on the freeway to the Mateo Pass turnoff. The exit I see is actually in about 5 miles, but I decide to take it anyway, which turns out to be a good thing. I find the turnoff to get to the Santo Domingo Pueblo and drive through the Pueblo at 30 miles an hour, per Brownie's instructions. The next turn is at Glorieta, which Brownie described as a brick lane divider. I'm looking for something that is like a wall in the road, but realize after I drive past it that it's just bricks set in the pavement. Understandable. I turn around, take the correct turn, and head for the ranch. I finally arrive at the gate, but I'm not sure what to do next, as I assume that it is locked, and I do not have a key. When I look closer, I see that there isn't a lock, just a carabiner clip on the chain that is attached to the gate. So I open the clip, take off the chain, drive through the gate, and refasten the clip. Alan, Brownie's cousin, who usually lives at the ranch, is waiting for me in the living room. He says he had started to get worried when I didn't call. I tell him I would have tried that next if I hadn't found the place. I don't tell him I was nervous about pulling over in an unfamiliar area where I hadn't seen another human being for at least 20 miles, after I drove by the gas station as the exit off the expressway. Alan and I text Brownie to let her know that I have arrived, and Alan offers to share a steak he has prepared. I am starving and gratefully accept the offer. He asks me to get a salad ready, and I cut up some tomatoes and lettuce. After dinner, he gives me a tour of the house and says he will be staying in his trailer the next night so he can go over everything again when the rest of the gang arrives. After that, he's heading to his granddaughter's house in Arizona. The next morning, I get up early to go to Albuquerque Airport so I can try to see the balloons. The Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta was going on the whole week, our main reason for coming down here. From the airport for a while before Iverson and Dryce arrive. It turns out I can't see much. The balloons are still pretty far away, and this convinces me that we have to go to the park at least one day if we really want to see the balloons up close, even if it means getting up in the middle of the night to get there. I meet Iverson and Dryce and drive them to the ranch. Iverson and Dryce unload their stuff, and then we all take a brief tour of the house. The rooms are laid out in a circular pattern, with one bedroom right off the kitchen area, 3 more in the back of the house, and a 5th bedroom off the dining room. I had picked the room off the dining room for myself. In the evening, Larson, Sutton, and Fellows all arrive on a single flight from Denver, where their connecting flights had taken them. Iverson, Dryce, and I pick them up at the Albuquerque International Sunport, and all 6 of us arrive back at the ranch at about 9:30 p.m. Iverson and I jump out of the van so I can show her how to open the gate, which is unlocked except for the carabiner clip to keep out animals who wander away from their own farms. The others agree to have Iverson show them how to perform this task when it's daylight so they can take turns. But for now, she is the go-to person for the gate management. Larson and Sutton take the room with twin beds just past the kitchen, and each of the others had their own room in the back of the house. We usually have to double up when we get together, so this much space feels luxurious. Larson and I usually share a double bed, but this time I asked to keep my own room, at least for the first night, as we're planning on getting up at 3:45 a.m. to make it to the balloon fiesta in time to get a place to park. She understands, but I still feel guilty saying that I am now used to sleeping by myself. I said I would reconsider the following night. The living room, dining room, and kitchen are all together in a single space, with a dining room table that seats 8. The living room is not particularly well set up for the television watching, as Alan lives there by himself. We don't usually watch a lot of television when we're together, but the Ryder Cup, Vikings game, and National League baseball playoffs are scheduled for this week, so we will take turns sitting in the recliner chair on the sofa. The small bathroom of the first bedroom is not working, so Alan has put a little sticky note to ask us not to use it. This warning does not seem sufficient to me for 6 women in a strange house who might need to get up during the night, so I place some toilet paper across the sink and over the lid of the toilet to remind us that they are off limits. There are 2 other full bathrooms, one in the back and the 3 in the back bedrooms can use. And one just off the kitchen that the 3 of us staying in the front bedrooms will use. Alan is going to visit his granddaughter so we can have the run of the house. He asked us to take care of 2 things while he's away. We will water the outside plants on a schedule. The hanging plants are to be watered twice while he's gone. The ones on the deck are to be watered every other day. I write all of this down in my notebook, as I'm sure to forget the details as soon as he's out the door, if not sooner. The other task is feeding the dogs. There are specific instructions for this task as well. The dogs have free run of the ranch, and are often not there during the day, but he wants them to come back to the house at night. So we are to feed them at 4 p.m., 1 scoop of food for each on top of a can of food, with a dog biscuit on top. It's a nice little serving. The 2 dogs are to be fed at the same time, separating their dishes so the bigger one doesn't move on in on the other dog's food when he finishes his own. Then in the morning, if the dogs are still on the porch, they are to receive a cookie. Larson and Iverson accept responsibility for taking care of the dogs. Sutton offers help too, but we agree that it's better not have too many cooks in the kitchen on this one. Alan leaves, and at 4 o'clock Larson goes beyond the call of duty and also feeds a 3rd dog who often hangs out with the other 2. We have specifically been told not to do this. She doesn't really see the harm, and later she tells Fellows, "Don't tell Martinson that I fed the other dog." I'm standing just a few feet away and say, "Too late." I remind her that Alan does not want this other dog to hang out with his dogs, and about attracting the many stray dogs around the area by feeding them. The next day, on the way to the balloon festival, she asks whether I'm afraid of dogs, and offers to help me overcome the fear. I explain that I'm not afraid of dogs, I'm just not that interested in them. I use the analogy of her relationship with football. She can take it or leave it. I'm that way with dogs. I happen to be allergic to cats, so my relationship with them is less neutral. I'm not sure she's convinced that I'm not afraid of dogs, but we don't discuss it anymore. I say again that Alan doesn't want us feeding stray dogs, and as far as I know, for the rest of the week, she honors his wishes. Alan has told us to help ourselves to anything in the freezer, refrigerator, and pantry, so we scout out what's there before we think about making our grocery list for the week. The counter between the kitchen and the dining room is now the landing spot for things of interest to the group. I've made a notebook with tourist information, maps, details about the Balloon Fiesta with our tickets for 2 sessions pre-printed. This has turned out to be a good thing, because the printer on Alan's computer is not hooked up yet, and we would not be able to print our tickets ahead of time at the house. Once everyone gets settled in their rooms, we spend a few minutes sitting around the dining room table, mapping strategy for the next morning. Larson has decided not to get up at the crack of dawn to go to the Balloon Fiesta, and since Fellows is on the fence, I suggest she stay at the ranch with Larson, so Larson won't be left out in the country by herself with no transportation. Fellows agrees, and they both say that if they change their minds about going, they'll get up with the rest of us. They're both still sleeping when Dryce, Sutton, Iverson, and I head out at 4 a.m. on Sunday for the 45-minute drive to Albuquerque. There aren't many cars on the road at that hour until we get close to the Balloon Fiesta Park, and then traffic is backed up for what seems like miles before the exit. Let's see. Hey, Aaron, welcome in, lurking in the background. Sounds good, sir. My parents had an old black and white TV. I love Lucy, my favorite black and white TV show. I love that Marvel's WandaVision episodes. Yes, I saw that too. I thought I kind of enjoyed that. Alright, yes. Continuing on. When we finally make it off the highway, we're directed to a parking lot next to the park and pull up next to another minivan. Sutton ties a plastic bag on the antenna so we can find the car when we come out. Smart. And we find our way to the entrance. We have about 45 minutes before the dawn patrol goes up, so we head to the souvenir shop tent to look for t-shirts. Each of us picks a shirt and decides what decals to put on them, and then wait while the guy applies the decals. Then we follow the crowd to the launch area to watch the dawn patrol. This morning, like they will every day for the whole 8-day balloon festival, about 6 to 8 balloons go up to test wind conditions. They put on a show, firing up their burners one at a time, and sometimes in unison. My camera keeps trying to light up the background, so I switch to video and get some great footage of the dawn patrol before and during launch. After the light show, the dawn patrol balloon goes off one at a time to create a beautiful scene when they're all airborne, lighting up against the dark sky as their operators add more heat to fly them higher. That would have been cool. About half an hour later, the announcer says that the green flag is up after the pilot briefing, so the mass ascension will begin on schedule. Altogether, there will be over 400 balloons, launching every half minute or so over a 2-hour period. The balloons are all laid out on the ground, and we were able to stand right next to them, less than 10 feet away, as they get ready to launch. Each balloon has a truck or a van and trailer parked by the open end of it, and a crew of 10 people works on filling the balloon, some hanging onto ropes and keep it tethered to the ground once it starts to inflate, others filling it with warm air using a propane-driven blower. Once the balloon is filled, which takes anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes depending on the size of the balloon, another crew of 2 to 5 people jump into the basket, and the ground crew releases the ropes anchored to weights, and the balloon slowly rises. Finally, as the sun comes up, the first row of balloons is filled and takes to the air. Then the crews begin filling the next row of balloons. The special shapes, as they are called, come in varying sizes and configurations, from Kermit the Frog to a giant stagecoach to Darth Vader. That's good. They require calmer conditions as they are much more difficult to maneuver. The huge 2-story cow gets fully inflated, but at the last minute, someone decides that wind conditions are such that the balloon is not able to fly today. That must have been a bummer. At first, there are 10, then 20, and then quickly 30 balloons floating above and past us against the bright blue New Mexico sky. Soon after the first wave launches, the battery on my camera runs out, so I'm not able to take pictures. This turns out not to be such a bad thing, as I stop worrying about getting the best shot and just appreciate seeing balloons as far as the eye can see come closer. Some closer, others in the distance. They are very noisy when the propane heaters are firing and filling the balloons with heated air. But when they are airborne, they make no noise at all, floating through the sky in rows and lines, then branching out as they fly away from the park. It's impossible to look at them all at once, which is why not being confined by a camera lens is actually a good thing, especially since my friends are shooting photos like crazy, and they'll be happy to share them when they're all finished. It's hard to imagine how the balloons keep from bumping into each other. The zebras, the people on the ground who give the signal to each balloon when it's time to launch, do a remarkable job. Occasionally the balloons do get pretty close to each other, and I hear someone say, "That's not good." I'm not sure if this person knows any more about balloons than I do, but the two balloons touch briefly, and then one flies away. The colors are difficult to describe. Like the 128 crayon box that we all wanted when we were kids, but settled with the 24 crayon size. Before seeing the Fiesta, I was kind of a snob about the special shapes, but seeing them interspersed with the more traditional style balloons actually adds to the tapestry. Seeing the sky get brighter with each passing minute after sunrise changes the look of the scene in amazing ways. Once the mass ascension is complete, we decide to hang around the park for a while to let the traffic clear. After some searching, we locate the Krispy Kreme donut stand and enjoy donuts and hot chocolate before doing a little more souvenir shopping. In one of the tents, a gentleman is playing panpipes accompanied by a guitar. He's very good, and I buy one of his CDs. We also have our photo taken at the Albuquerque newspaper booth. They say they will send the photo to us via email in 48 hours. At 11 o'clock in the morning, excuse me, afternoon rest time catching up to me. At 11 o'clock in the morning, after all the balloons have launched and we've purchased all the souvenirs we want, we find the van in the parking lot, get in, and drive back to the ranch, feeling tired but exhilarated. When we get back to the ranch, Larson and Fellows are reading and relaxing. We tell them about the Dawn Patrol, balloon launches, and watching the sunrise over the mountains. We have a show and tell with our souvenirs, a tradition that we all enjoy, and then start thinking about our menus for the rest of the week. I'm going to take a quick sip. That balloon festival sounded fantastic. The next morning, we head out for Madrid, a biker hippie community that's where they shot most of the series Breaking Bad. On the way, we notice a sign for the, let's see if I can not mess this up, Cachacatu Tent Rocks National Monument, which sounds interesting. We don't expect Madrid to take the whole day, so we decide to take a side trip to Tent Rocks. At the turnoff, there's a sign that says it's 5 miles down the road. That doesn't sound too bad, so we make the turn. In 5 miles, we arrive at the national park site and can see the rocks from a distance. There are hiking trails that get closer to the actual rocks, but we're not up for a 3-mile trek, so we decide to go farther along the road to get to the overlook. When I say we decide, it sounds a little milder than it actually was. Iverson and Sutton lobbied hard to go to the overlook. The rest of us were less enthusiastic, but agreed in the end to check it out. It's a good thing to do when you're a friend. Highly recommend for your bucket list. Yeah, I bet. As we leave the paved road, we consult Glorieta Google, our nickname for Dryce's smartphone GPS program, which we nicknamed after those concrete dividers between lanes on the road that Brownie had referred to in her directions to the ranch. I had completely missed the turn the first time going to the ranch, as I didn't know what a Glorieta was. Glorieta Google has helped us out a couple of jams when we are lost, and she tells us now that we will be on paved roads for about 5 of the 10 miles to the overlook. We're committed now, so go on the dirt road that seems to go on forever. After 3 miles, we hit a brief stretch of paved road, then back to dirt. After making a hairpin turn toward the overlook, we are now on a skinny mountain road that does not look wide enough for 2 cars, and that has no guardrail on the passenger side of the minivan. Larson is starting to freak out, and the rest of us are trying to stay calm. Yeah. I should say that the driver, me, is trying to stay calm and not think about the possibility of a car coming down the mountain. At one point, one does. Fortunately, near a slightly wider section of road, so we are both able to pass safely. This goes on for 3 more miles until we reach the overlook. It is a spectacular view. 360 degrees of tent rocks, green shrubs, and menacing-looking clouds that do not appear to be that far in the distance. The thought of driving back down the mountain in a driving rain is terrifying, and I pray that the weather will move in the other direction. It moves towards us, and the bright sun that has been lighting the tent rocks goes behind a dark cloud. We don't stay long at the overlook, and are anxious about the trip back down. Fortunately, the dark clouds move away from us. The trip down is not as scary, as we are on the mountainside. We are on the mountainside of the road, and it's the guys on the other side who have to worry about the unguarded, straight-to-the-bottom view that we had on the way up. The drive back to Solid Green seems much shorter this time, and we are ready to head to Madrid for some shopping and lunch. The road to Madrid looks pretty good on the map. The map is wrong. That's funny. It's about 20 miles of washboard pavement with no option to turn off to try another route. We take about an hour to get 20 miles and are glad to see the expressway when we finally get there. Parking in the town is ridiculous. We drive through the entire town, about a mile in length, and start to park next to one of the stores. Unfortunately, the spot is very tight and I'm not able to maneuver the minivan into it. So we back out and go to the beginning of town where we finally find a spot. It's right next door to a candy store. So we figure we'll stop there after we have finished lunch and after our shopping. The road to Madrid looks pretty good on the map. The map is wrong. That's funny. Very funny indeed. And that brings us to the end of chapter 16. Fantastic stuff. And we are ready to do our Stream Raiders battle. So thank you for putting those units down. And I did unlock a spell to help us out. This is a curse, so I'm going to curse these guys. And go. Think we'll be fine though. See? Easy peasy. Good job, everybody. And Garuki and Blink 182 Gabe. You get the gold and the rogue scrolls, flying rogue scrolls. Good job. Since we handled that one with such ease, let's move on to the next one. Ah, yes, I remember this map. If you have archers, archers are great for this one. There you go. Easy peasy. Alright. How's everybody doing? Are we enjoying the story? I know I am. We don't have that much to go. It's going to be a short one. We are on page 125, about to get into chapter 17. Ooh, this should be a good one too. This is May 1971, graduation trip to Europe. We've graduated college. Good job. And a graduation trip nonetheless. So it's funny because growing up in the UK, it's much easier to travel throughout Europe because you're right there. You know, a quick, very quick plane. You can be in France or Germany. You can take the train to get over to France too. The tube, you know, going underground, the shuttle. But I imagine when you've always lived in the States, getting to go to Europe is kind of a big deal. So just like being in the UK, visiting the States would be a big deal because it's such a longer distance travel. So this should be a good chapter. I look forward to it. Let's see. RNL asks, Christy, Did they have balloon rides too, in addition to the balloon race? That's a good question. Christy, if you're there, did they have balloon, like, could you, as a viewer, spectator, could you get an extra type of ticket or pay more money to go on a ride? Or was it, you know, just enjoy the show kind of thing only? I do wonder. Yes, you can take balloon rides. It's pretty expensive. Yeah, I imagine it would be. And quite the liability, too. Like, oh, what's down there? Just kidding. Okay. Enough of that. Enough of that nonsense. Alright, here we go. Chapter 17. Graduation Trip to Europe. Each May, Concordia offered a May seminar program that involved 5-week courses in Europe. While we were not registered for the seminar, we were able to get seats on the seminar's charter plane for $250 each. We started planning our trip in January, as soon as the announcement came out that the deposits were due. Larsa and I planned to travel together as we wanted to spend more time in Germany, which makes sense because you're your major. Get that? While Sutton, Fellows, Dryce, and Iverson planned to travel together to other places. Larson and I decided to take only a small backpack, with 2 dresses and a pantsuit that we planned to wash every few days. We were planning to visit cathedrals and knew that it was considered disrespectful to wear jeans or shorts in those places. I did not know that. It's good to know. I made my 2 dresses in the home EC class that I took as an elective that semester. We ordered our Eurail passes and planned to spend the 5 weeks taking trains around Germany, Austria, Denmark, and Norway. The night we were scheduled to leave, we were notified that the lightning rod had broken off the plane, we were supposed to take, so we should be staying overnight at the FM Hotel, an upscale place in Moorhead. Flying was not one of my favorite activities, and this news didn't help. Yeah, I imagine it didn't. The next morning, we loaded onto the bus at 8:30 and headed to the Fargo airport. We learned at the airport that we would be on the first ever non-stop flight from Fargo to Paris. I bet that was cool. I mean, if you like flying. The initial part of the flight was pretty uneventful. As we flew over the coast of England on our way into Paris, the pilot told us to look out the window. We could see the orange glow of streetlights outlining the coast of southern England. The pilot said that he had never had such a clear view of the coastline. It looked just like it does on maps, and even a chicken flyer like me would appreciate the magnificent view. I'm sure it looked pretty cool. Because of the delay in leaving Fargo, we landed in Paris at about 2 in the morning. We didn't have hotel reservations since we expected to arrive in the early evening and were planning to stay at a bed and breakfast, most of which didn't take reservations. As we got off the airport bus in downtown Paris, one of the May seminar leaders gathered a group of us together and said he would help us find lodging. Okay, that would have made me a little anxiety-stricken, just saying. We ended up in a small hotel and paid for a full night's lodging for about 4 hours sleep. Been there. The next morning, Larson and I took the metro to the train station and hopped on the first train headed for Germany. Our first stop was at the Bremen train station, where we checked the bulletin board for housing. As we were looking, a gentleman came up to us and said he and his wife have a room just a few blocks away. Have a room just a few blocks away for a few marks a night. We thought it sounded reasonable and got into his car. That's very brave of you. I don't know if I would have done that. The room was upstairs in the couple's house, with one double bed. The bathroom was down the hall. We paid cash. We had been able to get German marks at the train station. We decided that the blanket with sheets buttoned onto, we later learned the term duvet, was the way to go, and vowed to adopt this approach when we returned home. So we wouldn't have to make our beds every day. So I've never attached the sheet to the duvet. When I grew up in the UK, we just never had a top sheet. We had a fitted sheet and then a big blanket, and that was about it. So that's interesting. One of our first destinations was, oh, here we go, I'm going to say this wrong. One of our first destinations was Neuschwanstein. Christy, you'll have to let me know how badly I butchered that. The castle made famous by Walt Disney at the beginning of the Cinderella movie and the Sunday night TV show, and before that, the crazy King Ludwig, who built the place. We took a train to, oh boy, all these names. Hohengaw. I did not take German in school, and settled into our room in the pension before heading to the castle. There were buses from the town to the castle, but we decided to walk. We estimated it would take about an hour each way. This wasn't too far off, but we hadn't accounted for the fact that about half of the walk there was up the side of the mountain, and I mean up the side of the mountain. Our first glimpse of the castle didn't look much like the view in the Walt Disney opening, which showed the castle from across the valley. Instead, we were looking up at it from a curvy mountain road, and that approached it from below. It was still beautiful, and so was the view from the valley and the lake below the castle from a parapet attached to the castle's lower level. On a tour of the castle, our guide told us lots of interesting stories about crazy Ludwig, a few of which we had learned in our German classes, but most of which were new to us. In addition to designing and financing lavish castles, Ludwig was known as a political radical and was always on the run from creditors. His intense interest in opera composer Richard Wagner helped Wagner's career, and he helped fund Wagner's personal opera house in 1876. After about 3 hours, we headed back down the mountain road on foot. We stopped at an outdoor cafe for a late lunch. The cafe was outside a stuccoed white building with green shutters on a cobblestone patio. The horse-drawn carriages that took people for rides up the castle passed us a couple of times as we sat there. The horse poop didn't particularly add to the ambience of the restaurant, so we ate fairly quickly and went on our way. Can't blame you one bit. Horse poop stinks. That much I know. Later that evening, when we looked for a place to eat in Hohengaw, again, can't say it, or at least I don't think I am, most of the restaurants were closed. So after schlepping around town in the rain, we decided to get some wurst, apple juice, and Suchard chocolate to take to our room. That sound, Suchard chocolate. I don't think I've heard of that one before, but I want to try it. For the rest of the trip, searching for Suchard chocolate became our first task when we stopped for the day. Okay, so it must have been pretty good, if you're looking for it every day. Once we checked into our room, we looked at the movies in town, and the only thing showing were a porno flick and Catch-22. Very opposite. So we decided to each buy a book. We found a small bookstore in one of the town's hotels, and settled in for the night. For the night meant 8 p.m. When Larsa and I hit the sack, the two single beds sitting side by side. The beds were fantastic, feather beds with body-length pillows and crisp white sheets. We woke up at 6:30 the next morning, enjoyed the coffee and bread with jam that our host set for us in the dining room before we headed to the train depot. Our next stop was Copenhagen. We enjoyed touring the Klasberg Brewery, where we sampled the product liberally, and Tivoli Gardens, where we strolled among the flower beds and rode the merry-go-round. A significant portion of the visitors to the garden were blonde, and it struck us that It struck us that this was the first time in quite a few days that we'd seen so many Nordic-looking people. Having just graduated from a Lutheran college in northwest Minnesota, we felt like we were at home. Later that night, we took a train that was loaded onto a ferry to cross the channel to Oslo. It was a strange sensation sitting in a train, experiencing the choppiness of the water, seeing nothing out the window except other trains on either side of ours and the belly of the ferry. That would have been weird. I started to get seasick and had to get up and walk around the train for a while to regain my equilibrium. Once we got off the train, we headed to Frogner Park, the largest park in the city of Oslo. We wanted to go to the sculpture garden, which we had read was the world's largest sculpture park with pieces by a single artist. This turned out to be one of my favorite spots on the trip. The sculptures consisted mostly of groups of anatomically correct people that were very lifelike. The misty weather contributed to the feeling of otherworldliness that being surrounded by the statues created. The next day we took a train to Bergen, a seaport in western Norway. The port itself was bustling and beautiful. We walked partway up a mountain, Ulriken, and then took a train the rest of the way up so we could look out over the city. The weather was fairly clear and the view was spectacular, with fjords carved out of rock and the open deep blue sea beyond. Oh, I bet that would have been a great view. My mom's relatives came from Bergen originally, and I wish I had taken the time before we left home to get more details about them. Her cousin's parents had immigrated to Minnesota from there. Her cousin had done some extensive genealogical research and had gotten in touch with relatives who still lived in Norway. That night, we took a train back to Oslo. I was not optimistic about the trip when I heard a baby crying 3 rows back, and, sure enough, the baby cried most of the night. I caught a little sleep when it was almost morning. Larson slept through it all, as she usually slept through everything. I envied her ability to hit the sack and stay asleep. I had been able to do that often on this trip because I was so tired at the end of the day, but not this time. A few days later, we started the day in Hamburg attending worship at St. Michael's Kirche, one of the largest Lutheran churches in Germany. The inside was beautiful, with dark wooden pews and bright white walls with ornate gold trim. We were able to follow most of the service in German, though we agreed that the sermon was too long, just like in America. Later that day, after packing up our stuff, we hopped a train to Bremen, about 2 hours from Hamburg. At the train station, we made a hotel reservation at the tourist bureau and bought some Suchard chocolate. Am I saying that right? Suchard? Ken Rothman, the fiancé of my freshman roommate, had relatives in Bremen and had given us their phone number. We called them and they picked us up at the train station. Zucard. Okay, Zucard. Yeah, I figured I was not saying it right at all, as probably a lot of these foreign words to me. Either way, I still want to try some. They took us to Rodenderdron Park, an incredible 2.5 acres of rhododendrons and azaleas of all colors. Is it azaleas? Azaleas, yeah, of all colors. The shrubs were in full bloom, and it was a beautiful Sunday afternoon, so the place was packed. Larson and I noticed, as we'd been noticing ever since we'd been in Germany, that the elderly German ladies could run circles around us. Ken's relatives told us a popular custom in Germany is, here we go, Volksmarches, community walks where hundreds, if not thousands of people of all ages walk together for miles at a time. Interesting. Larson and I agreed with each other that if we adopted this custom in America, then maybe we would have a chance to keep up with the German ladies. How's that going, Christy? I am curious. Next, Ken's relatives took us to Ratskeller, a famous tavern in Hamburg, where each had a tall mug of dark German beer. Then they took us to their house for supper. As with many German homes, theirs was much smaller than most American houses. They had 2 tiny bedrooms, a cramped living room and kitchen, and it was very close to the neighbors with no yard to speak of between or in front of the house. This chapter makes me travel to Germany. How did you remember the details? You must have a great memory or be a good journal writer. Yeah, I agree, wholeheartedly. It was a welcome change to see the inside of a house, though, where people actually carried on ordinary lives as opposed to a hotel or pension. We had a lovely meal of wurst, fried eggs, and cake. Ken's Aunt Turda, who had just returned from America, enjoyed practicing her English on us, and we enjoyed practicing our German on her. As with many Germans, the family appreciated the effort we had put into learning their language, and remarked that our accents sound very authentic. I was sure that it would still be obvious to most Germans, as we were not native speakers, considering the speed of our speech compared to theirs. After dinner, an hour or so of conversation, they took us back to our hotel. We thanked them, and said we would be sure to share their regards with their nephew when we got home. Our plane is scheduled to leave Paris in a couple of days, so we headed back to Paris. About an hour after our train arrived, we were checking the metro schedule for getting to the Louvre so we could see the Mona Lisa. As we checked the advertising column, we heard screams from behind us. It was Dryce, Iverson, Sutton, and Fellows, who were also just arrived in Paris. Well, that's fantastic timing, if nothing else. None of us had found lodging yet, so we went together to find a reasonably priced hotel that was near a metro stop, so we could get to the airport when we finished our visit to Paris. I loved Paris, by the way. Chocolate croissants there are magnifique. We decided to split up once we got inside, and meet at the entrance in 2 hours. It was very crowded, and would be too difficult to keep track of 6 of us. After the exhibit, we all talked a mile a minute about what we had been doing for the last 5 weeks. Larsa and I told the others about our trip to Austria, and about the overnight train to Bergen, Norway. The others told us about their trip to London, and visit to the Buckingham Palace. We all agreed that we were ready to not be living out of a backpack for a while. I imagine that was fun. When we arrived at the airport the next morning, it was exciting to see the exotic destinations and to see the interesting arriving passengers. We found the gate for our destination, Fargo, and wondered whether other people would consider it to be an exotic place. Our plane left on time this time. We stopped in Niagara Falls to go through customs and enjoyed the beautiful view of the falls at night as we flew over them on our way home. We arrived home at the Fargo airport at about 11 p.m. We were all exhausted after an 8-hour flight, and from having been on the road for 5 weeks, staying in hostels and eating as much wurst and Zucard chocolate as we could find. Many of the other students had family members waiting for them. Dryce, Iverson, and I did not. So, after we picked up our suitcases, we said goodbye to Sutton, Fellows, and Larson. This was it. We would never again be living together, studying together, going to church together, eating on $5 a week. It was probably good that we were a little sick of each other. We were ready for a break, so the reality of the big break was a little easier to take. But still, I can only imagine that must have been a little tough. We were tired, but wired, so Iverson, Dryce, and I, plus another friend, piled into my Mustang convertible and headed toward the highway. I was not anxious to let anyone else drive my car, so I drove. About an hour out of Fargo, the other three were out cold, and I was driving in utter darkness except for the light from the Mustang headlights. No one else was on the road. At about midnight, it started to rain, and the flap, flap, flap of the windshield wipers was about to put me to sleep. I turned on the radio and tried to find a station out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. The static woke Dryce up, and she talked me through the last hour and a half of the trip. I dropped Dryce, Iverson, and their friend Debbie off in White Bear Lake, and headed to Golden Valley just as the rain subsided, and the sun was starting to rise. Getting out of the car to get their suitcases gave me a second wind. As I drove off, I began thinking about my summer job working in the bank where my dad works, and tried not to think about the fact that my college days were over. I would be spending the summer with my dad, and then heading off to a town I had never seen, Ann Arbor, a place where I did not know a soul, and where I was hundreds of miles from home. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Darius, just type in exclamation Polka start. There you go. You got it. After graduation, Sutton married her high school sweetheart and moved to Michigan, where he was assigned to an Air Force base. She became a laboratory technologist. Fellows returned to Montana to be a music teacher, and I moved to Michigan for grad school and eventually ended up working as an educational consultant at the University of Iowa's College of Medicine. Larson accepted a teaching position in St. Cloud, and Dryce and Iverson moved to Hastings, Minnesota, where they both became elementary school teachers. And that takes us to the end of Chapter 17. What a fascinating trip that would have been to go all the way and see all those great countries. That would have been really cool. And just a reminder, we have about 5 minutes before Stream Raider starts, so don't forget to get your units down. There's the link just in case. Is this the last? It is. Man, we are on the last chapter. I can't believe this is it. This is the last chapter. But there's a very cool picture here. I'm assuming these are class rings. Trying to get it to focus. Yes, class rings. Yeah, I thought. That's very cool. Alright. Before we get into Chapter 18, I'm going to take a quick stretch, and then we will come right back. Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, was much needed. I spend a lot of time in my typical workday sitting in this chair. So taking those stretch breaks and picking up a free weight every so often and, you know, stuff like that is very, very needed, let me tell you. Aaron, can you do me a favor? If you go into mod view, there's a Hossbot. I know their account has already been suspended, but would you mind banning them anyway, just to be sure? I would really appreciate that. If you're there. If not, I can get him next time, I think. Or we'll figure out another way. Okay. What do you want me to do in mod view again? If you see the user list, there is a Hoss0312, Hoss0312. If you could ban them for me, that would be great. I know their account's already been suspended, but I don't want to take any chances. I don't like the bots. Bots bad. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. For some reason, even though I'm in, you know, streamer mode, I can't figure out how to do that myself. Like, it just doesn't come up as an option. I don't know. It could be because they're already suspended. I'm not sure, but... Oh, it's that bot. I know what it's doing. Hi, Queen. Yeah, Sir Darius, there's like, I don't know, 10 different variations of that specific bot. So anytime I see them, I ban them all. Hi, Queen. We're playing Stream Raiders, and you've got like maybe a minute or so left if you want to get a troop in. Yeah, you've got 25 seconds. So maybe you won't, but that's okay. This will probably be the last Stream Raiders for today, but we'll do more another time. And I may end up doing some off stream too. Yeah, it's not going to load that fast. No, it never does. Never does. In fact, we'll just go over there now. And the battle is ready. Sorry that I'm late. No. Don't worry about it. We still have one chapter left of this really cool book. And so I have curse, so I'm just going to curse these guys. And there we go. Everyone's trying to go around and they're trying to go up the middle. Go figure. Get him! Get him! Easy peasy. Yeah, I just started yesterday. Alright, good job, everybody. And RNL, you get the 50 gold. Yay! Sweet. Collect. Wonderful. Good job, folks. Good job. It is a fun little game, and I've been playing it for months. And my Baby Captain 2 still didn't even beat the second boss yet, I think. I haven't even gotten to the first boss, so it's no big deal. Alright, yeah. RNL, yeah! Okay, here's that picture one more time, because it's such a cool picture. Everyone's wearing their class rings. I love it. Kind of jealous I don't have a class ring. And this is the last chapter, chapter 18 for 2017, Lake Irene, Miltona, Minnesota. Christy, before I start the last chapter, I just want to say again, thank you so much for letting me read this book. When I posted online, you responded to Maggie's post, and I was elated, especially since it's someone so close here in town. The journeys that you've been on in this book and the different things that you've experienced are just fantastic. And most of which it seems like at the college level, college age range. Obviously there have been other ones as well, but thank you so much for sharing this with us and allowing me to then share it with the community here. I really appreciate it. So, with that said, let's finish the last chapter. In the summer of 2017, we decide to try an Airbnb in the lakes around Alexandria, Minnesota. Our host is Elaine, a Japanese-American woman whose photo on the website shows her holding up a glass of wine. This is a good omen, and the photos of the lake place look very inviting. I make the reservation in March and communicate occasionally with Elaine before our stay in August. She says her book club loves to go to her place for a long weekend in the fall, and she is confident that we will enjoy our stay at Lake Irene. I don't remember how I found out that she's from Montana, but when I told her one of our roomies was from Montana, she asked what part. Fellows is from Big Timber, and now lives in Helena. Elaine note that Fellows is from the pretty part of the state, and her home is in the western part of the state, is an acquired taste. When I tell Fellows the name of Elaine's hometown, it turns out that she is from a town where Fellows' grandparents lived, and Elaine knew her grandparents. Small world. During the first night that we are at Lake Irene, Iverson gets up at about 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom. She tells us the next morning that she saw a flashing light that was lighting up the entire kitchen, and we agree that we should email Elaine to let her know. She tells us that the server for the computer resets at 4 a.m. every day, and that we don't need to be concerned. The lake home works very well for us. There is an open area that includes a living room, dining area, and kitchen, and there are 3 bedrooms. We divide up 2 by 2. Larson and I are in 1 bedroom, Sutton and Iverson are in the one with the king bed, and Dryce and Fellows are in the 3rd room. They tell us as we're leaving that it was a little cramped, and I make a note for the next time that Larsa and I should take the smallest room, as we usually have less stuff than the others. We take our annual group shot on the deck with the lake sort of in the background. As usual, it's like herding cats to get us all in one place at one time. But also as usual, we get it done, and the timer on my camera works well for us to get at least one shot where we're all smiling, or at least not frowning. We also do our annual goofy photo. We use several resources to help us decide where to eat our meals out. One place that was recommended by our Airbnb host and by a couple of people who had also stayed there was called Chet's Lakeside Inn. They are known for their fried chicken, and even though we are still pretty full from lunch, we decide to go there shortly after they open for a dinner at 5:30. There's a beautiful vintage light yellow Ford Galaxy convertible parked outside. We're not sure if it's there just to make the place look authentic, or if someone inside is actually driving it. There's one other group already seated, so we assume it belongs to them. Chet's looks as if it could be a converted lake place, with tan siding, red brick on the lower layer, and brown shingles. There's a 60-foot tall chicken by the front door. Or not 60, geez, a 6-foot tall chicken by the front door. 60 versus 6, that's a big difference, okay? But still, there's a 6-foot chicken by the front door. We debate about whether this is actually a hen or a rooster, as it has a red comb on top. I can't remember who won the debate or what the final conclusion was. The chicken is noteworthy, however, as Larson agrees to stand next to it for a photo so we can show how tall it is. This is noteworthy because Larson never willingly poses for photos. Ever. Inside, Chet's looks like a roadside tavern with 3 rooms surrounding a salad bar in the middle. We order various forms of fried chicken and load up our plates at the salad bar. I take a big helping of pickled herring, a delicacy that I usually just have at Christmas time. I made an exception once my friend Nancy was going to visit relatives in Norway, and she wanted to sample various forms of herring to decide which one she might want to eat on the trip. The chicken is really good, as advertised, and we head back to the cottage after taking a closer look at the convertible. The group that was there when we arrived has left, and the convertible is still there. We conclude that the convertible must belong to the owner or staff of the establishment. After we return to the cabin, we decide to make indoor s'mores, as it's too windy outside to use the fire pit. This time we write down the instructions, so we're sure to make them perfectly, every time. So here they are. Before you start, use plates, not paper towels, so you can lick up the extra. It's very important. Pee before you make them, because you're going to be laughing and you don't want to have to put down your s'mores to go to the bathroom. Also, very important. Remove white pants. Preferably replace them with some other color pants that won't show the melted chocolate. Excellent advice. Now, how to fix s'mores. Put the chocolate and bottom graham cracker on the plate, then the marshmallow. Microwave for 10 seconds with the top off. Note, we decided to modify the instructions to say with the top cracker off. As Sutton looks down at her chest in horror as she thought of making s'mores with their top off. That's funny. This leads to the first of many fits of laughter, leading to snorting, as we know this will be a fun weekend. After 10 seconds, open the microwave and place the top graham cracker on top. If the chocolate has started to melt around the edges, lick it up so it doesn't run over the plate and make a big mess. Put the microwave on for 5 more seconds. Watch carefully and, when the top cracker falls off, open the microwave, put it back on, and push it down to flatten the marshmallow. Remove after a few seconds. Now, we have instructions for as you eat them. Also important. Stand over the plate or sink while eating. Eat around the edges first. Drink water without touching your lips to the glass. Use a different hand for your water glass than for your s'mores so you don't get the goo on the glass. Good tip. To make sure there's enough stuff to make your s'mores, ask who's had them so far. It will be easy to tell who might be lying. That's good. And lastly, instructions for cleaning up your mess. Because you should always clean up your mess. If you have prepared the s'mores properly, cleanup should be a breeze. If not, soak any plates, cups, and glasses in hot water before attempting to clean up any goo that you haven't licked off the plate. It's that simple. The goo will come off much faster. So there. If you need these instructions, they're in this book towards the end. And you can get these instructions by visiting this link. And the instructions will be there for you. The next morning, Sutton asked me to help her put some decals on her van. She had been to Concordia for homecoming and bought a couple of car decals. One is the Cobber C, and the other says Concordia Alumni. We scout out good spots for them and decide to put one on each side window. So they will show up as people get into the van and as other cars pass by, but they won't obstruct the vision of either the passengers or the driver. This burgundy Honda Pilot has taken us many fun places, as it is the only vehicle that will hold all 6 of us, except for Dryce's minivan. This means that Sutton does a lot of driving on our trips, except for New Mexico when we had a rental and I was the one who signed up for it, so I did all the driving. We paid a little extra on that trip so Iverson could drive if needed, but it seemed to work well to have her be the navigator and me do the driving. When we ride in Sutton's minivan, we take turns sitting in the far back seat, except for Larson and Fellows. Larson needs to sit in the front as she gets carsick, and Fellows needs to sit in the middle so she can hear what's going on. Iverson, Dryce, and I each have our own methods for getting into and out of the back seat. Dryce prefers to go butt first. Iverson hangs on to the hook and pulls herself out. I grab onto the roof of the van and slide partly out before grabbing the handle to pull myself out the rest of the way. Clearly, these vehicles were not designed for 60-something women, but we make it work. As we get ready to leave Alexandria, we pose for a final photo next to the van. By now, we are all crying, with Fellows getting us all going. I have brought along a tripod and attached my camera to it. I set the timer on the camera, scurry over to the van, and find my place just before the flash goes off. We repeat this exercise a few times to be sure we get one shot where we're all smiling and have our eyes open. Then, we say our goodbyes and hug each other one more time before we part ways until next summer. And I also thought it was very fitting that the end of that chapter also coincided with the end of that song. We finish the book now with a short little poem that Christy has added, called We Six. And I think it's very fitting. It's written by Janice Larson Braun. Spending time with old friends is like breathing crisp Canadian air as it comes across the lake. The laughter, the hugs, the gentle smiles restore raw hope, the strength to stand up, straight, under the weight of life, and regenerate the cleansing energy of love. And that, my friends, is Friends for Life by Christy. Christy, this has been a fantastic read. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I cannot thank you enough for letting me do it. I've got some great creases in here. The poem is by Larson in the book, by the way. Oh, really? Well, it's a great little poem. Oh, duh, Janice Larson, right, okay. Connecting the dots, slowly but surely. I enjoyed it. It was good to listen to the book. It was good. Like I said before, normally the types of reads that I'm going to do are going to be fictional. But every so often, it's a good break to read something that's got way more value than just a story that was made up. Christy, again, thank you for allowing me to share this with the community here. I have appreciated it so much, and I hope you did too. So thank you. And again, just in case anyone wants to follow up on this, there's the Amazon link, so you can find it for yourself. Thank you. I'll send a photo of my painting. I would love to see that, and then I'll share it on here too as a follow-up. And since we just read a lovely little poem, Sir Darius, you sent me a poem, and I'm gonna go and read that right now as well. I think that'll be a nice little way to end our stream today. Before I do that, Aaron, are you streaming shortly? Sadly, I didn't catch much of the book, but what I heard was fantastic. You are streaming shortly. Okay, so I don't know if you're going to be starting soon, but I would like to... You're going to start in 20 minutes. Okay, we probably will be done before that. So, here's the deal. For those of you that are in here, if you want to listen to more reading... Aaron, could you remind us of what it is that you are reading? Because I have completely forgotten. I know you just said it yesterday. Completely slipped my mind. Oh, you're reading my book. Okay. You know, I should have remembered that, alright? I feel bad. Okay. So, I don't have a copy in front of me, but I wrote a book a little while ago, or published it a little while ago. Do I need to push the button and go live a few minutes early for you? Only if you want to. Because either way, I'm going to shout you out right now. So, Aaron is part of the USG. He and I helped form this new group, United Storytellers Group. He's reading one of my books next, called Final Earth. It's a fictional dystopian, and I'm sure he will tell you more about it once he gets into it. But, yeah, if you want to go live, I will raid over to you. If you don't want to, the link is right there to reach out and enjoy Aaron's stream. I hope you do. He's a fantastic reader. He does it for a living. He's got a golden voice, and it's way more British than mine is. Although I can turn on the British mode if I need to, but his is authentic, whereas mine is muddled now. Are you pushing the button now? All right. So yes, no one's ever read this book of mine out loud yet, so I'm nervous and excited all at the same time. But before we do that, let us read this other poem that Sir Darius wrote called Love Story. How fast you can lose so much. Every single touch, every moment of happiness. Now you will spend your days lonely, without anyone by your side. But remember, there is time for everyone to be happy. Spread your love to everyone. It will come back. Because every great moment, every single breath will come back to you, one way or another. Today, you don't see any love. Yesterday, you loved too much. Tomorrow, you will be loved. Thank you for sharing that with me, Sir Darius. I love that poem. I thought it was great. It's kind of got that what goes around comes around feeling. And even though love can sometimes feel like a sting, love does come back. I thought that was great. It was wonderful. And yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for spending your time with me today. I hope you have more time to spend with Aaron as he prepares to go live. I'm literally just waiting for the notification so that we can raid over to him. I can't raid over until he goes live. But in the meantime, if you're not subscribed to Aaron, there's the raid message. If you are subscribed to Aaron, there's the other raid message. I'm going through some sort of letting go at the moment, so that brought a tear to my eye. Thank you, I needed that. Letting go is never easy, especially when it was something that we desperately wanted to hold on to. But sometimes, letting go is the only appropriate thing we can do if we want to grow, or if we want to let the other person or other thing grow. It takes guts. It takes courage. But once you've done it, there's something calming about it once you've kind of gotten over that. So I wish you strength, Queen. I really do. Letting go is not easy, but it takes a strong person to do it. Okay. Alright. Aaron is live. So I'm going to move us over there right now. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here with me. And next week, we start off with H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. and of course, more Stream Raiders. So until then, I wish you adieu. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and be safe.
It got put through its paces while I was working at the game studio. And here we go with Atkinson and his 4 viewers.